Welcome back to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. I'm Tanika, but before we dive into today's episode, I just want to say a huge thank you for being here. This podcast was created to feel like a safe space where women can exhale, feel seen, feel informed, and feel a little less alone in whatever season they're moving through. So if the conversations that we've had have supported you in any way, one of the most beautiful ways that you can support the show is by subscribing, leaving a rating, or sharing an episode with another woman who needs to hear it too. It genuinely helps our podcast to grow and reach more women navigating preconception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. So let's get into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of With Love Mama, the podcast. Today we have a birth story guest, Chloe, joining us. How are you going?
I'm so good. So good. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. We were just speaking before I hit record around you've had a positive instrumental delivery of your baby.
Correct.
So ended in a vacuum and episiotomy, but you actually had a great experience. So let's get into before your labor actually began, what was your
Yeah.
vision for your birth experience?
Well, I always really wanted, the water birth with, the dim lights and the music and the aromatherapy and, to walk in a hospital, be 7 centimeters dilated, everyone to be like, oh, it's coming, it's happening really quick. I really wanted a quick labor, like less than 12 hours was my ideal.
Mhm.
And also just to be in hospital as minimal as possible. Yeah, so I guess my ideal birth was quick labor, water birth, minimal intervention, lots of skin to skin, um, cord clamping once. It was wide and limp, golden hour, very minimal people in the room.
Mhm.
That was kind of my ideal birth plan, but I knew from a lot of people telling me to have a very open birth plan because things don't go as expected, and to kind of have a backup birth plan if I was to need a cesarean as to what kind of things I would like if that was to end up being the case.
That's a really important piece is, and I've had this conversation with multiple mums who have come on and shared their birth where first time, sometimes you can go into it with like a very rigid plan. And then if it takes a different turn, whether that be for like good or bad in your
Yeah,
own perception, it can actually
yeah,
like throw you out quite a lot when you're in that experience. So going into it with
one
more of
million
like
percent.
going
Yeah,
into it with more of a map is definitely like a really great piece of advice for mums. It's like
yeah,
it can
one
go in
million
so many
percent.
different ways. It's such a experience that we cannot predict how it's going to go, no matter all the prep and
Yeah.
everything you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, one
Um,
million percent.
so you mentioned that you were laboring at home for a while and then you went in.
A long
Was it after
time, a long
24
time.
hours you went in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, after 24 hours I went in.
Yeah.
So basically my due date was the 31st of October. I was with MGP. I'm not sure if other people know what MGP is. It's like a midwifery group practice.
Yeah.
Basically, it's very midwife centered care. You have the same midwife through your whole pregnancy. So I had an appointment with my midwife. I was very much pro do anything necessary to get this baby out of me at that point.
Hmm.
Initially, I wasn't too keen on the whole membrane sweep thing. By that point, I was like, let's do it. So I did a membrane sweep. I was 0 centimeters dilated, 50% of face. Obviously, when you're 40 weeks, you're like, I was expecting to be a little bit dilated by now.
Hmm.
And she recommended that I actually did labor inducing acupuncture.
Yeah.
So I went in, I would have been 40 weeks and 2 days when I went in and had labor inducing acupuncture. I had a membrane sweep on the same day. I was still only 1 centimeter dilated by 2 days later after the first membrane sweep.
Mhm.
So I had the acupuncture. She told me to go home, to bounce the ball, to pump, and that's exactly what I did. And my first contraction actually hit at 8:30 that night. So
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay. And most people, or when you hear midwives, I guess, explain what contractions feel like, they talk about dull period like cramps. That was unfortunately not my experience.
Yeah.
Mine was actually all in my hips and my back. And initially, I didn't really understand why it was like that. I wasn't quite sure if it was labor initially at first because of one, how intense they were from the get go. It was like 7 out of 10 from the get go. They were only really short. They're only lasting about 30 seconds, but they're every like 5 to 8 minutes from the beginning. So I labored at home by myself overnight. My hubby had actually taken a sleeping tablet right before my first contraction. And I was like, go to bed. It'll be fine. I will wake you up if I need you or we need to go to the hospital. Which I'm glad I did in hindsight because it obviously ended up being an absolute marathon of a labor.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so contractions every 5 to 8 minutes. I set up like a little mini circuit at home. So I had cushions set up in one way so that I could rest over them. I had like my ball. I had like just, yeah, a couple of different stations that I kind of moved between because I found that after a certain amount of minutes or contractions that it would get uncomfortable in that position. And if I moved to another one, then it would take pressure off one part. And yeah, so definitely having a circuit of
Were
different
you
ways to labor
were
was
you
great.
practicing the Miles circuit at this stage of labor?
No, I had no idea what the Miles circuit was
Okay.
until I actually went to hospital. So no,
Yeah, so because
fortunately, I wish I did.
you mentioned that you went into hospital and your baby had flipped to posterior, is that correct?
Correct.
And then did you start doing
Yes.
Miles circuit to try and support his
Once I
position?
knew that she had flipped,
Yeah.
when I told them that I did acupuncture and that I laid back, so the morning I had the membrane sweep, she was actually back to belly. So she was
Mhm.
in a very normal position that morning when I had the second membrane sweep. I had the acupuncture in the afternoon, and they think that she flipped while I was laying back
Oh, okay.
to the acupuncture. So that's when they think she flipped. And yeah, so at this point, obviously, I was unaware that she had flipped. It got to like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I knew that I had to ring my midwife and let her know that I was in labor so that she could be there for the delivery because that's kind of the protocol they follow. They cancel their day patients so that they can be with you.
Yeah.
Um, so I called her and I was like, look, I'm cooked. I'm exhausted, haven't had any sleep. These contractions are like, five minutes apart. Can I just come in and get checked? I don't think I'm anywhere near close to actually giving birth because one, I can talk, two, I can still walk around. So she's like, yep, come in. And she checked me. And at that point, I was only 3 centimeters dilated, which
Mhm.
obviously, when you've been in labor for over 24 hours at this point, 3 centimeters feels like a really big slap in the face.
From here, from like the only being 3 centimeters after such a long period of contractions, what actually
Yeah.
helped you to keep on trusting in yourself and your body?
Honestly, I was actually really stubborn and really just kind of wanted to be able to do it. I kind of wanted to prove a lot of people wrong. So a lot of people told me that I wouldn't be able to have a natural delivery, that I'd end up getting the epidural or that I'd end up going for a Caesar. And I was like, no, I want to prove to myself and my body that I'm actually capable of doing this, even though it's so long, it's so hard, I'm exhausted. I just kind of wanted to prove to myself that I could do it and to prove to
Yeah.
everyone else that I could do it as well. You know what
I
I
think
mean? So
yeah, I do. I know exactly what you mean. And I think it's completely normalized in today's society to just opt for an epidural, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with if that is what
no, nothing
are
at
wanting to
all.
do.
Nothing at all.
But I do think that it is very much so normalized in that it's too
Yes.
hard, women
It's
can't
talked
handle
about.
it. And
Oh, and the beds are just there, just take them. You know what I mean? It
exactly.
makes
So
labor
I
so much
think
easier. Yeah.
that's actually a really cool intention you had behind you. It was your stubbornness because it obviously
Yeah,
gave you a lot of willingness to move through such a long
yeah.
period of labor and beyond. Yeah. Cool.
And don't get me wrong, there was definitely moments of, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. This
Of
does feel
course.
really hard. Maybe everyone is right. Maybe I should just opt for the epidural. And then there would be like, the midwives were absolutely amazing. They're like, no, you can do this. You're so strong. Like, totally by tonight, early tomorrow morning, your baby's going to be here.
Mhm.
And that was like, okay, you know what? That was my little bit of, okay, I can actually do this.
You mentioned in your birth story that you used gas and the mile circuit and then also got into the pool. So, what actually
Yes.
did feel most supportive for you in helping your body to open in the end?
I actually think the gas in the air, because by the time I got the gas in air, so at this point they actually sent me home and then I labored for the entire day and then I came back to hospital. Um, Once I got the gas in air, I think because I was quite tired by that point, and obviously when you're tired, you tense up a lot, and I don't think I really gave my body the opportunity to one relax because I was just so tired, and I just knew the contractions were coming. And obviously I hadn't had a break at all in over 24 hours. I was maybe like, so by the time I got to the hospital the second time, it would have been over 24 hours by that point. So if you think about it, I hadn't slept since Wednesday night, and it was now Friday.
Yeah,
So
so you
that's
were
kind
just
of the perspective of how long I had been without sleep. And for 24 hours of those, I was in pain for every 5 minutes. You know
so
what I
it
mean?
makes
So
complete sense that you were just bracing yourself for each surge that was coming rather than actually softening into it by that stage.
just relaxing into it. Yeah. So
Mm.
I mean, I wanted nothing, and I didn't want any pain relief whatsoever. But the midwife had said to me at this point, like, look, I think the gas and air would actually be quite helpful, even if you don't have it for the pushing stage, even if you just have it to help your body relax a little bit, to help open your pelvis up. It might actually be quite beneficial. And you know what? If you don't like it, you don't have to have it, and we can try other forms of pain relief
And
after that.
a lot of the time, the gas and air is really great just to bring you back to your breathing because breathing's actually
Yes.
such a huge piece that allows us to surrender and soften in labor and birth. But like you were in, it had been so long, you're not going to be focusing on your breath by that point. You're going to be like
No.
focusing on what's to come and getting into
Like, oh my gosh, okay, in like 5 minutes, I'm going to be having another contraction, and it's going to be really painful. And you kind of just, yeah, tensing like
yeah,
that.
so that's a really supportive way to actually be using gas and air, especially when
Yeah.
you're opting for unmedicated birth. Like that's a really
Yeah.
beautiful, empowering way to use them.
To still like respect the fact that I wanted an unmedicated delivery, but also give me the opportunity to relax. And that
Yeah.
is 1,000,000% what the gas did for me. The best way I can describe it is in pain and out of space. Like, you're there, you're still feeling the pain, but you're not with the pain, if that makes sense. You're kind
Yeah.
of away from it, but still there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So 1,000,000% people are like, oh, I'm still in so much pain. You are still in pain. It's just kind of turning off the brain's kind of response to the pain,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. It kind of shuts off that pathway in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that you were pushing for over 2 hours,
Correct.
but you did move from 4 centimeters to 10 centimeters very fast. Is that correct as
Very
well?
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I arrived at the hospital at about 9:30. I was only 4 centimeters at that point. They wanted to watch me do a couple of contractions to see what I was doing throughout them. The baby was obviously still in a non-optimal position. So we were back to back, and her head was coming out sideways. So instead of like the back of the head being what presents first, it was actually like the side of her head.
Mhm.
Um, so obviously that is why I was, one, not dilating very quickly, and because of malpresentation of the head basically. So yeah, they got me to do started me on the mile circuit. They got me pumping it on the ball, and they got me gas and air. So I did the mile circuit for about an hour. They got me to do every position for, I think it was about 15 minutes
Yeah.
with the gas and air. Then they got me on the ball pumping. I found that pumping while contracting, like negative a 10 out of 10. It made the contractions way worse, much more intense. But I think that along with the mile circuit and doing that, it did really help me dilate. So in 2 hours, so from 9 till 11, I actually went from a 4 to a 7 quite quickly in comparison to like how much I'd progressed in 24 hours at that point. And I was like, so I'm staying to have her. And they're like, yes, you're staying. And I'm like, great, go get me the epidural. And they're like, okay, no worries. And I was like, I'm going to get in the shower and like try and sort that out. You go get the anesthetist for me. And they're like, yep, cool, no worries. And like by this point, 11:30 midnight, obviously there's not that many people on overnight time. Um, and then I got out of the shower, and I was like, oh, I actually don't know if I want the epidural anymore. Like, oh, I kept kind of changing my mind at that point because I guess one, I'm just really tired, and two, I'm just like, I just want this to be over and done with as quickly as possible. And they're like, okay, well, you know what? Let's just run a bath. Let's give it an hour, see how you feel. Nothing's going to change that dramatically in an hour. You know what I
It
mean? Like,
sounds it sounds as though your care team was very supportive on your intentions going into birth and what you desired to experience,
yeah.
which is really, really great to hear in a hospital setting.
1,000,000%. And I actually, being a nurse, I did not want a student midwife because I obviously deal with students in my job, and I just didn't want the questions being asked. I didn't want to be like looked at through a microscope while going through something so vulnerable. However, when I rocked up on the day, they had a student there, and I was like, whatever. I'm not going to be that type of person that goes, no, I don't want a student, you know. And she actually ended up being way better than the actual midwife, which was surprising. Like, she was doing like the pelvic pressure. She took photos for us. She was talking through contractions. She was doing like the whole positive affirmations. She was very much involved a lot more in being the midwife to patient rather than the actual midwife, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point to touch on because I think
Yeah,
a lot of women do opt out of student midwives and every experience is different, but that's really great that she was such a great
100%.
emotional anchor for you. So
Yeah, and she did amazing.
I'd love to also ask when the decision was finally made about a vacuum and episiotomy, how did
Yeah.
that actually feel in that moment for you?
Well, I was given an ultimatum of, okay, you have two options. One, we do the vacuum episiotomy, or two, you go for an emergency Caesar. And in my brain at the moment, it wasn't, I'm opting for a vaginal delivery. I just wanted whatever would happen quicker
Yeah.
um, at that point. So I labored in the birthing pool for a long time. Anthony, my partner, got in with me. They were like, "Oh, you've actually dilated to a 10," and that was at midnight. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, your baby's going to be here in the next hour." And then my partner was like, "So no epidural?" And I was like, "No, no epidural." And they're like, "Yeah, we probably don't have time for it." And I was like, "Cool, but we're going with my original birth plan anyway." Um, I got like the sensation that I needed to push. I don't like to say that I was pushing for 2 hours because I wasn't really trying for the whole 2 hours, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. I felt the pressure in my bum, which I mean, if you've had a baby, you know what that feels like. It feels like you got a poo. And I was like, okay, you know what? I feel like this is like, I've heard that this is the feeling. I'm just going to give it a go and see what it feels like. I tried it once and she goes, okay, so we're starting pushing. And I was like, no, I just wanted to see what that felt like. And she goes, no, but you've tried. So now that's when we start the clock. And, you know, obviously being in and out of it with the gas, I don't really feel like I tried for the whole 2 hours. It was kind of on and off throughout the 2 hours. But she got the Doppler and she's like, having a hard time getting a good reading on baby. We might just get you out of the bath. And I was like, cool, no stress. Got on the bed. Um, Obviously, the contractions had really ramped up by this point. Wasn't really listening to what was going on around me. Kind of very much like in yourself. When you get to that point, you're not really kind of paying attention to what's going on around you. And she's like, "Okay, Chloe, I need you to get off the gas because we need to have a real serious conversation." She's said to me that, "Oh, having a hard time getting a really good reading on baby. I'm going to push this button. Nothing's wrong. I just want support for when we get to the point where we're delivering baby, just because we don't know what baby's going to be like when they come out. I can't guarantee that, you know, like something's wrong right now because nothing appears to be super wrong, but we just want to make sure that we have the support if we need it." The doctor came in, watched me do a few pushes. She's like, "Look, baby's in a real funky position. So the two options are emergency Caesar, vacuum delivery. Not satisfied with baby's heart rate. She needs to be delivered quickly." And I was like, okay, like, let's just go vacuum and episiotomy. And from me saying vacuum episiotomy, it was like done within 2 minutes, as in, like, the cut was made, the suction cup was on her head. She told me that I had three pushes, and if I didn't push her out in three pushes, with her obviously pulling, that we would have to go for an emergency Caesar anyway. I got through the third push, and she's like, "You need to push in contractions." And I was like, "I'm actually not feeling any contractions at all." And obviously, at this point, I still had no pain relief on board. They had taken the gas off me, so I'm like fully with it. And I'm like, I'm actually not even feeling contractions. So just, I'm going to tell you when I push, and you just pull. And they ended up pulling her out on the fourth pull. There was like meconium, the cord was wrapped around her neck, but the second they took the cord off, she cried straight away.
What do you
That's
remember
okay.
most vividly about finally meeting her after that 33 hours of labor?
Honestly, looking at her face, my first thought was, "Oh my gosh, I've just had a baby." Like I've just had a baby. That was like the wildest thing. And Anthony was like, "The first thing you said was my baby," and I was like, "I'm getting teary just thinking about it."
Yeah.
um, it truly is one of the most like magical experiences. It's like you can't describe it. It's just such a euphoric feeling. Putting them on your chest, hearing them cry for the first time, looking at your partner, seeing them cry, and then looking at this little human that's just 50% of you, 50% of your partner. And obviously, like as a first baby, you have no idea what to expect. But yeah, it was truly just one of the most beautiful things.
So I would love to finish this episode on just looking back now. What did your birth teach you about surrender, strength, and just the unexpected nature of birth? Because you had a 33-hour labor in the end and you still
One
had
million
such a
percent.
positive experience. So what did
Yeah.
it teach you?
I think just trusting yourself. I think going into it, if you think you can do it, you can do it. I mean, anything you put your mind to, you can do it. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And that was 1 million% the mindset I took into delivering my daughter. And as difficult as the labor was, if I could go back and do it again, I 1 million% would. I would go through that whole labor again. Obviously, next time I probably wouldn't do the acupuncture. So I'd probably have a much easier delivery in terms of her not being posterior this time. But yeah, just honestly, just trusting in your body and having a really good support person there with you, whether it be your mum, your sister, your husband, and also having, like, in terms of delivering in public, it can be a bit difficult in terms of having a nice midwife. But even if you were to get a doula beforehand, or just having your support people be on the same page as you, so that when you can't advocate for yourself, they can advocate for you. And I think that is like a really important thing to have,
Yeah.
especially going into labor when you're not entirely out making decisions for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, because your job as the mum is to really just like focus in on what your body's doing and move with your body and your baby. So I think that's a really
Exactly.
great piece of advice that you've
Yeah.
left there. Thank you so much for
That's okay.
sharing your birth story
Thank you.
and such a
Yes.
positive experience in a hospital setting, which is so great to hear.
Yeah, 1 million percent. Yeah, definitely.